the whole book actually made me start look into a unconscious bias theory, because the way that we perceive the world, and everyone perceives the world, you and I, is deeply, deeply biased. What does it mean? It uses shortcuts, it uses pattern recognition. And why is this possible? Because in old times, we better knew very quickly if there's something attacking us and we have to run, or whether we are in a safe place where we can seek shelter. So the way that the brain works, because you might say very well, why do we need this quick thinking system? It's useless, it gives us wrong information, it makes us feel confident when we shouldn't, it makes us make wrong decisions. But it is indeed, or it has proven to be helpful. That's why we're still here the way we are. It has proven to be helpful in moments of time where we had to make a decision in milliseconds, whether to run, whether to cross the street or not cross the street. That's what the system does fairly effectively. So my favorite, let me give you three. One of my favorite is the recency bias. So basically, when you are being told that something happened, so your friend in Milan won the lottery, then next day I ask you, Maha, how likely do you think it is for someone living in Europe to win the lottery? And you'd be like, that might not be this unlikely because my friend has just won. If I ask you half a year or a year later how likely it is for someone in Europe to win the lottery, you'd be like,
it'll probably go down.
Yeah. The same, yeah. I mean, when a lottery is positive, and in Europe, the same is true for plane crashes. When a plane has crashed and people get asked how dangerous it is to enter an airplane, the closer they are to the event, the more likely, the
higher the probability of it to happen.
So here comes the trick. If you know that an evaluation is coming up, so if someone is going to make an assessment of yours, and it's something we naturally do anyhow, make sure that the 3-4 days before you perform really, really well. What the brain does, it draws conclusion from the most recent happenings, and it draws a story and a pattern, and it tells the world in the context of these recent happenings. So that's recency bias. I have another one which I like, which is the sunflower bias. What does this mean? It is that the most senior person in the room, when they speak up, they become like the sun, and the other people become like little flowers that turn to the sun in the directions where it's speaking. So when you are the leader, very practically speaking, when you are the leader in the room, make sure you do not speak first, because if you want to or not, there's a very strong likelihood that you'll bias the group in favor of your own opinion. Some people would say you have to even make people write down the answer to a very difficult question, keep the paper with them, and then ask the question, then basically ask people to respond, because every comment that's being made has an influence on the other comment to be followed. People love harmony normally, they love congruency, they love the fact that a good story is being told. So a lot in the book is also about really good storytelling and how our brain loves coherence. So we do not like the complex world around us. We want to make sense out of it, right? So needless to say again, right? If you want to convince people, tell them a very simple and good story around it. And that's my last bias is the so-called mini-me bias. That's just a general appetite. Mini-me is literally the fact that when you look around you and see what type of people you sponsor, what type of people you mentor, what will very easily happen is that those are people that remind you in one way or the other of yourself. Yeah. So it's like, oh yes, they're like, oh, the way I was when I studied medicine. You feel like, oh, I want to support them, I want to help them. There's nothing bad about it in general. There's only bad when you want to build a diverse leadership team. If you want to build a team with multiple opinions that can also come up with new ideas, challenge one another in a constructive ways. It doesn't happen if all people around you look exactly like you, and the next layer also looks like you, and they then also have the little mini-me bias. So if you want an organization to become more diverse, more innovative, more robust in the decision-making, the one thing you need to do is to literally make sure that people do not only sponsor those that remind them of themselves. And also, the very first reaction, when you have a very strong reaction against or for a person, that's the moment where Kahneman would say, take a deep breath, switch if you'd like to, from the quick thinking system to the slow thinking system, and just say, ooh, would I have had the same reaction to this person if they were of different gender, of different role, upbringing, nationality, race? What do I know? But literally, whenever you have some sort of a strong reaction, there's a very, very strong likelihood that there's some bias at play. And the best thing to literally do is to breathe.